there, hello, hi, welcome. So in the previous video, we saw how to create functions. We created a function to filter books by the author Ralph Topelli, and then we replicated that function to filter books by Gregory David Roberts or G.D. Roberts. So this is what was functions, but this was, as Jeffrey said, a slightly less sophisticated way of doing it. Now let's see what's the more sophisticated way of doing it and why it is more sophisticated. It sounds super intimidating. It's called Lambda functions. Let's dive into it together, shall we?
Hey there everybody, welcome back, and you know what, I hope you're excited because, trigger warning, I'm going to push you just a little beyond your comfort zone in this video. We will talk about Lambda functions and refactoring and why and when you might want to make a function you have a little more generic and a little more flexible. So let's get started and see what we can come up with. So we will once again work with our books list. And yeah, here's that filter by author function that we worked on in the last episode. And yeah, it gets the job done, but it's not the most flexible thing in the world. And here's what I mean. What if you later decide that you also need to filter according to the release year? How exactly do you do it when author is right there in the name? Well, I'll tell you, what a lot of newcomers do is they will reach for duplication. So they add a second function. All right, let's filter by the year, and then they substitute where they need to. So check if the release year is now equal to not author, but the year. And I haven't checked this, but I'm pretty sure that would work. But once again, hopefully you can see this is not very practical. What about in the future when you need to filter according to 10 different parameters? Does that mean you're going to have 10 different filter functions? Of course not. We don't want to do that.
So one caveat here is he mentions in the future, and we all think that it's some mythical date that will happen like 10 years from now. But what he means is even in the present. Or what if you need to do that today? What if you need to do that tomorrow or this week or at the end of the week? Then that's not super practical. In fact, it's an opportunity cost. What he's hinting towards is there is an opportunity to filter by so many things, by all four of these things. But instead we're choosing to, and also any combination of these four as well. So what if we have to find a book by Ralph Topelli that was released specifically before 2015. So all of those are useful things to have, but our primitive implementation today does not allow for that.
Instead, it sounds like we need to make things just a little more generic and flexible. How exactly do we do that? Well, I'll show you how to get there in a few steps. All right, let's get going. First up, notice how we are looping over our books. And originally you learned that you reference a variable name, like books. But then in the last episode, we swapped that out with this function call.
Also, sorry, I realized my microphone was placed all the way across the desk, but now I've put it in the regular spot. Hopefully you're able to hear that better. Sorry, let's continue. Yeah, this should sound a lot better. This is where my microphone was. Now this is where it is. Okay, let's continue.
But remember, it's still the same thing. I'm not saying loop over the function, I'm saying loop over whatever is returned from the function, which itself is an array. So it's still the same thing. But yeah, there's nothing keeping you from swapping this out, like this. Maybe this is filtered books, and now I will extract a variable. And yeah, this is actually the jargon that we would generally use, extract variable. And that means exactly what you just saw. We take a bit of logic and we extract it into a variable, and then we substitute.
This is so much cleaner. So what he's doing essentially is instead of calling a function within the for each loop, defining a different variable, and then looping over that variable, that filtered array, instead of looping over what the output of this would be.
The variable wherever that logic used to be, exactly like this. And yeah, this is still going to work exactly the way it did before. Okay, cool. That's step one. Here's step 2. Now,
wait, let's do that. Okay. So, I have 2 of these. I'm going to remove GT Roberts because that was just something we did as a test. As much as I like his work, he's one of my favorite authors. So over here, I'm going to define a new variable. Let's say filtered books equals filter by author. No, not filter ID, but filter by author. This whole thing. In fact, I'm gonna change this to Rolf's books. Okay, and at the end, I'm gonna add a semicolon. Then I will loop over this as Rolf's books as book, and then This will work exactly the same. It will remove GT Roberts though. Yeah. Okay, it still does work. And for clarity, should I also remove this because it's cluttering up everything? Yeah, there you go. Cool. So, we have this list of books, and these are books by Rolf Dobelli. Sorry about that.
what you see here is what's known as a named function. Yeah, a named function is nothing more than a function that has a name. Teacher of the year over here. But yeah, as it turns out, there's nothing that requires that function to be named. So for example, if I were to delete that, well, my editor is squawking here, but not because the syntax is invalid. Let's have a look. Expression is not used anywhere. Yeah, so my editor is saying, okay, you created this function, good deal, but you never used it, so you might want to have a look. Notice it didn't say invalid because it's not invalid. All right, interesting. So now we know we can create named functions or anonymous functions. So your next question is, well, what do you do with an anonymous function? And the answer is, well, you could assign it to a variable, or you could even pass it to other functions. Kind of interesting. Okay, let's review that variable option. Filter by author. All right, very interesting. So now I have a variable that is equal to a function call. And notice because I have an assignment here, an expression, that means I need to conclude it with a semicolon, which is a little bit different. Okay, but now if I scroll down, I'm trying to use that function, but my editor is complaining, undefined. And that makes sense. I don't have a named function anymore. I have a variable name that points to a function. That is not a named function. So let's swap this out with the variable name, like so.
Wow.
And now this should do the trick. So yeah, what we have here is what's known technically, to use jargon, as a Lambda function. But yeah, for now.
Pause. I hate this. I do not enjoy this at all. I do not see the point of this. Maybe he explains why this is useful. Let's find out.
Just think of it as an anonymous function. That would be fine. Come back to Firefox, cross your fingers, refresh the page, and yeah, it still works. Okay, so now I think we have the tools and the knowledge we need to move on to our refactor. All right, so let's bring this back to a named function. I'll undo this a few steps. And yeah, let's think about it. If I want this to be more generic, it sounds like I can't have any reference to the author because I could be filtering by a category or a release year instead. So why don't we just call it filter? Next though, maybe I'm filtering books, but maybe I could also be filtering a different array entirely. Why don't we make this more generic and as a result more flexible? So I'm going to change this to, how about items? Some people go with data. Some people just write array. It doesn't really matter. I just want a generic term that could represent any collection of items. So I will stick with that.
Wait, just tell me in chat if Lambda functions are useful. I'll open chat. View. Where's chat? Where's chat? Where's chat? Yeah, chat. Just tell me why this would be useful. Explain to me, will you please? Chat. I just don't see why I would ever use a Lambda function. I want to know. Also, how do I put this always on top? I'll just say live chat. Is there a way to put this always on top? No, I don't think so. I want just the window, this window, to be always on top. Okay, I guess I can do it like this. See, that's a nice hack. So I'll put this always on top. Okay, there you go. Cool. Now we're here, and I'm skipping over the Lambda function, if that's okay. I don't think it's useful. I don't understand the use of it until someone here enlightens me.
Now I have to update the names. And then next, I can't say filtered books because it may not be books. So let's select that. And actually, real quick, notice how I was able to create multiple cursors here. Almost all editors have support for this at this point. Just Google your editor's name, followed by multi-cursor or multiple cursors. Okay, that allows me to quickly update things like this. How about filtered items? Okay, what else needs to be updated? Well, the book name. That will simply be item. And then the last thing we should update is this right here. I can no longer assume that we are filtering by the author, and I can't assume that I have access to an author variable. Okay, so how would we do that? Well, it sounds like when I call the function, I need to give it a key, like author, and then also a value. So this is sort of how I want to use the function.
Okay, one second. Let me follow along until now. So array of books. I'm going to do this, and where else is the array of books? I think that's it, right? Yeah, so instead I'll just say items, and filtered array can still remain filtered array, but let me just call it filtered items. In VS Code, by the way, is option click, so I'm double clicking this thing, so I'll say individual item. I don't have to say individual item anymore, I'll just say item. I'm double clicking a word and then pressing option or alt, and then double clicking the other things to highlight multiple things at the same time. Now we cannot assume author anymore, right? So I think this should be key and then value. So this should be key and then value. This item, if this key equals this value, then return filtered items. I think that's correct. Filtered books should be author Rolf Topeli, so I'll just say author Rolf Topeli. Let's see if that still works. Yeah, it does. How about release year? That's how I spelled it. Release. Let's say release year 1969. Remember, that's a number, that's not a string. Okay, so 1969. Okay, The Godfather. So this works. You know, this won't work if I change this into a string. You know why? Because I'm using the strict equality operator, the triple equals over here. See, it did not work. But if I change this to a double equals, it might work. Let's find out. Yeah, it did. See, let's stick to triple equality because that's the more accurate thing to do. So if I change that to only two equal signs, double equality, then it doesn't check for the type, whether it's a string or if it's a number. But now that it's triple equality again, it does check. So I'm going to change this to, yeah, this does work, filtered by the new awesome function. Yeah, I forgot to rename this filter by author. It's just filter. That was easy.
I want to give it my array, I want to give it my key, and then I want to give it the value that the key should match. Okay, let's update our function signature. Key, value. All right, now we can update this. Key, value. And yeah, with any luck, if we update this, I think this should probably still do the trick.
Yeah,
let's give it a test. Come back to Firefox, give it a refresh, and good, I did make a mistake. And now the cool thing is, this is quite a bit more flexible. What if I want the author to be Andy Weir? I just update the argument here. Refresh, that works. What if we instead want to filter according to the release year? That would be 2011, I think I have one. Yeah, The Martian. That works as well. What about 1968? Last example, and you get the idea. Okay, cool. This is definitely an improvement, but I think we can still take it a little further.
Amazing.
The comparison we have here is one of equality. Give me all of the books that were released in the year 1968. Ooh. But yeah, once again, it's not the most flexible thing in the world, because what if I instead wanted to say, give me all of the books that were released after the year 2000?
Let's go.
Well, with our current implementation, that's impossible. It just won't work. So how can we make this more flexible? Well, when we started refactoring this function, we took some of the specifics and we pulled them out of the function. And instead, we passed them in when we called the function. So would there be a way to effectively say, this right here, this check, I want to be in charge of that check. I will pass it in when I call the function. And if that sounds confusing, just come along for the ride, and I think it'll make sense. Okay, so let's try a refactor. And I'm going to start by writing the code that I wish would work. So we learned about anonymous functions. What if I could just say, well, I'm going to pass an anonymous function, or a lambda, and this function needs to accept the current book. And now, if we scroll up, we just want to reproduce what we have here. Okay, so maybe return, look at the book's release year, and tell me if it equals 1968. All right, and this is actually pretty interesting. So think about it. Now I'm saying, ideally, here's how I want it to work. I'd like to call a function named filter. I want to give it an array. And then I also want to pass a function where I can be in charge of how this comparison is made. And in this case, I'm doing equality. But yeah, like we said earlier, I could just as easily say greater than equal 2000. And now, on the fly, I've changed this comparison. Give me the books where the release year is greater than or equal to 2000. Yeah, so notice what we did there. We took this rigid logic that forced an equality check, and we pulled it out of the function so that we can be in control of it. And that's pretty cool. Okay, but now, of course, it doesn't work, and my editor is complaining nonstop. Now, let's make it work. So
this is complicated. I love it.
Scroll up, and we're going to update our function signature, and that's the term we use. The signature is the parameters of the function. And we'll say, give me some items, and then give me some kind of function that I can call. So yeah, we could write it out. Some people will do things like this, or you will often see fn, which is short for function. And I'm going to stick with this approach because if we do, once we start learning about arrow functions in the future, you'll feel a little more at home. Okay, so let's figure this out. We decided that this check here is now being declared when we invoke the filter function. So let's swap that out with our function call. But now, we said right down here that we need to receive the book, right? So that means when I call the function, I need to pass the book, or in this case, the generic item name. Okay, and I think that looks right. Come back and refresh, and it works. So you know what? I think this is really cool because now we have full control over the comparison. And here's what I mean. If I
pause. Okay, let me step through this. Let me walk through this step by step. Okay, I think I'm going to need a bigger editor window. I'm going to embiggen this. Okay, let's go. So what we did here is we called the filter function and did this. What we want is to pass on a function. Instead of these two parameters, right? So let me just say function that takes book. I think there should not be a space here, and it returns books where release year is greater than this, right? So I want to say return book where release year is greater than or equal to let's say 1920, which will be all of our books. Okay, so I need to do this, but instead of I think I'll need a semicolon there too. Yeah, pretty sure I will. Yeah, I'll need to close this, and I'm going to need a semicolon here because that's a statement. Cool, now you're yelling at me because the filter function doesn't accept this. Let's make it accept it. So in the function signature or the function definition, I'm going to type fn, and over here the function needs to accept an argument, right? So I don't think I have to do that in the definition, do I? I don't think I do. Let's just have it take a function over here, and here if function item, right? If fn item. Cool, so let me explain what this does. So we want the program to filter books, and for every book it needs to go through a function and return if it's true or not. So what is true or not? If the condition here is the book's release year was after 1920. Okay, so if we go to the definition here, what's happening under the hood is we're taking every single book over here and creating a new array called filtered books, and in fact I'll just say new books for each new book. Yeah, that makes a little more sense. So for each book so for every single book that is greater than 1920, add that to the filtered items. So if this is happening, then add it to the filtered items, and then finally show me the filtered items. That's what's happening. So over here it should show us every single book. Let's see if that's true. Yeah, there you go. 1, 2, 3, 4. In fact, I think I can do a little better. I may be able to do and. So, and we haven't learned this yet, so let's try if this is true. And book release here is less than 2000. Okay, so this should only give us The Godfather, which is true. That's so much cooler. That's so much cooler. What I did was I added 2 filters within the one function definition. So I get the point of Lambda functions now. I guess they're useful. Anonymous functions, they are useful. I just think we need practice with it.
Later decide that, no. I want books that were released before the year 2000. Now I have a way to do that really easily. Or I could say, give me the books that were written by this author or some other author. Once again, now I have a place to do that, which is pretty cool. Okay, so now I want to finish up with one final refactor. And I know what you're thinking, this is enough, Jeff. We can be done for the day. But no, one final thing. So what we've done here is great, and you should pat yourself on the back. But as it turns out, PHP provides built-in functions for working with arrays. So if I got rid of this and replaced it with PHP's version, which is called array_filter, well, as it turns out, the signature for that function is very similar to what we have here. And that means if I come back and refresh,
What did you just bamboozle me for the last 2 hours? Are we getting bamboozled?
still get the same thing.
This is the beginning of my trust issues.
But now I get to use what PHP provides out of the box, which is really cool. So now let's just finish up by saying, how about books author, once again, is Andy Weir. And that all works like it did before. Pretty cool. Okay.
That's actually very, very cool. But wow, talk about being bamboozled. I'm kidding, of course. I'm obviously kidding. This is useful to know the implementation of this. It's so useful that he basically pushed us into the deep end of the pool. Love it. I can remove this. I had no idea. But here I can just say array. This is so interesting, man. This is so interesting. I would be so damn bamboozled if this still works. Oh my god, it does?
I think it's time to move onward to the next episode. But yeah, once again, if you need to, watch this video twice, ask comments, work through the homework, and then when you feel comfortable, only then can you move on. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go to Laracas PHP for beginners.com. Man, what a chapter, what an episode, what a lesson. I had no idea we would be thrown into the deep end of the pool and understand the internals of how a built-in PHP function works this early on our journey. What's happening? Why did you? I'll just go to Laracas and see if they have homework for us. PHP for beginners. Lambda functions. Homework. Cool. Update your filter logic and published between 1950 and 20. Yeah, we did this. We did this, lol. It's like he's reading my mind. We already did this. Amazing. You know what? I think we can go a step ahead here and say release year is after, let's say 2000. Let's say 2000. Let's say 2015. So that's one book for sure. That's this one. Or Rolf Dobelli's book, or before 2000s. So I'll say book release year is before 2000s, so less than 2000. So this will give us the Stop Reading the News book and The Godfather. Let's see if that's true. That's true. That's true. And I love that it's sorted it out by the order as well. The Godfather came first and then Stop Reading the News. Oh, because I was in chronological order here. Sort of. This was in chronological order. Yeah, that's so much fun. So this is or, and what we did before was and. This was and. Cool, so that's it for now. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. Go subscribe to Lyricasts, watch the whole video linked in the description. Okay, bye.